The war and its impact on food, energy, supplies and the global economy has so far dominated the annual G7 summit. Leaders have promised to back Ukraine against Russia's aggression for as long as it takes. They have announced more measures to tighten the squeeze on Moscow's finances, including a proposal to cap the price of Russian oil. Our correspondent, Shona Murray, is at the summit in Bavaria and she joins me now. Shona, a passionate appeal from the Ukrainian president, with G7 leaders pledging to stand with Ukraine for as long as it takes. In terms of practical action, what have leaders come up with?
And what we've heard so far is that there is likely to be an agreement on the possibility of a cap on oil prices. Now, of course, it requires full buy-in from countries like India and China, countries that are not sanctioning Russian oil, that are buying sanctioned Russian oil, the oil that nobody else in the West is taking. It'll also need buy-in from insurance companies and so on, and it is quite complicated. But it's really aimed at ensuring that Russia gets a reduced amount of revenue for its oil, and therefore its war chest is reduced significantly. And earlier on today, I caught up with Ursula von der Leyen, the President of the European Commission. I asked her a little bit about this and whether it was feasible.
As you see, the European Union is walking away from Russian oil right now. What should not happen is that Putin takes this oil, goes to the world market, prices are going up, and he's filling his war chest. And therefore, it needs a broader alliance to say we're willing to pay a decent price, but not a skyrocketing price. And we're willing to reward the production of oil, but at that level, there should be then the price cap, and we all buy in.
That was Ursula von der Leyen, President of the European Commission, speaking to me earlier on today, explaining how it may work, this price capping of oil. Also up for discussion, though, is further sanctions on Russian gold, for example. The G7 really is a platform for countries in the West, and Japan is here as well, to coordinate sanctions. And we heard from President Zelenskyy, who addressed the meeting today, who called on G7 leaders, Western leaders, to really increase the sanctions and increase the military support for Ukraine.
And Shona, leaders putting on a united front in their support for Ukraine, but are there any cracks in that unity, especially given the political pressures that some of the leaders are facing back home?
I think, since we've been sort of discussing the G7, hearing from the EU, from whether it's the Commission or the Council or the Member States, they've been really trying to strive for a unified position, particularly as we know that the relations between the EU and the UK aren't so good. We heard from Emmanuel Macron last night, who had a bilateral meeting with Boris Johnson, which went well. You could see some of the pictures afterwards. They're sort of holding on to each other and slapping each other's backs the way some men do. And, it's really a different approach to the hostility we've seen from those two. We've also seen this as a sort of a test for the German Chancellor, who's been criticised about being slow when it comes to sending heavy weaponry towards Ukraine. So I think that you can say at this point there is unity of purpose, because I think there's a very strong consensus that Ukraine is fighting for not just its own sovereignty and its own independence, but certainly for Europe and for the global world order. And I think that everybody has the feeling that they really need to see the bigger picture and fight for that, to ensure that all of that is resecured in the coming months or possibly years.